Welcome to IRL Ventures Travel Video Creators Podcast. This is the very, very first episode of hopefully a bunch more episodes. So before I get started, I just want to introduce what is IRL Ventures? Who am I? What are you listening to? What are you watching? So what we're all about is, it's in the name, IRL Ventures. So it is a podcast for IRL streamers that, for the uninitiated, is in real life streamers. So those are streamers that go around with their camera, their phone, and they film out and about. They go touch grass, right? They're outside. They are, taking in the sights and sharing it with all of you. So that's what an RL streamer is. And then the travel video creators goes for any other kind of travel video creator, whether you are a YouTube travel vlogger, whether you share, stuff on Instagram, short form content, etc. If it's travel related and video, then this is the podcast for you. So my name is Ed Ventures. I have a YouTube channel. I stream on Twitch as well. And now I am starting this podcast. So the reason why I started it is because I actually wanted to learn about IRL streaming and becoming a better travel video creator. But there wasn't really a lot of podcast resources in particular that really focused on that, especially not IRL streaming. So I figured, hey, why don't I create the content that I want to see, right? So I listen to podcasts every night before I fall asleep. I am an insomniac. So that is, I was kind of like, oh, I want to listen to something to get better at this stuff. So I created IRL Ventures. So I hope you enjoy it. And I will also be linking the Discord, in the description. So keep an eye out for that. It's a brand new community. We actually had our first person join today, so that's awesome. Now, enough with explaining what IRL Ventures is. Let me introduce our wonderful guest. So our guest today is Nadine Mulvina, aka the Sober Butterfly. The Sober Butterfly is a fun, unfiltered podcast for sober and sober curious women. Hosted by Nadine Mulvina, New York City-based content creator, sober travel expert. Be nice if I could pronounce it correctly. Sober travel expert. This podcast explores sober dating, alcohol-free living, harm reduction, addiction recovery, and mental health with humor and honesty. Okay, so that is a quick little introduction. So let's give a warm welcome in the chat here to Nadine. All right.
Hello. Hi, Ed. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. You are the very first guest of IRL Ventures. And it's an honor to have you. We appreciate it.
What an honor to be here. And this is my very first live stream interview ever. So thank you for allowing me this opportunity.
Well, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. So just a little bit of background. So I actually met Nadine at Podfest, which is a podcasting convention. And it was really cool. It's my first time going to anything like that. And that kind of solidified me starting my own podcast, basically. And I met Nadine there and we started talking. And I was like, okay, you got to come on my podcast because I think you got a really interesting perspective and great story to tell. And, she's got a great podcast as well. So that's kind of how we met. And then we networked, and now she's the first guest on our podcast. So networking and going to these creator events is super duper powerful. I would not be in the position I'm in a lot of ways if it wasn't for like in-person networking. It's not dead. It's more alive than ever, believe it or not, especially in the creator economy. But yeah, so anything else you want to share, Nadine, before I get started?
I think everything you said, plus it's the synergy, right? It's that energy of being amongst people who get it. And like, that is so contagious. Like being amongst creators, you feel creative. And I just want to shout you out because you are so charismatic. You have such great energy, Ed, and specific to, I think what really solidified it for me, everyone's passing out like their little business cards or their digital cachets. And Ed, he comes along with this lens cleaner that I still use to this day. So he had his business card, all of his contact details on a lens cleaner that I use to clean my phone screen, that I use to clean my sunglasses. So I just want to give you credit where credit is due, because that really set you apart from the rest. And you're also just such an awesome person.
Oh,
And networking wise, like you've invited me to events here in New York, since you're also based in New York. So I love that. Thank you.
yeah, of course. And yeah, that I got a lot of comments, positive comments on the lens cleaner business card. Um so whatever you,
Next year.
yeah, please do. If you can do anything to stand out, that's huge.
Yeah.
Even if someone's not in your niche or whatever, like they'll think of you. And I do video editing work too, so I've actually been able to get some work from that as well, just even from attending that conference and handing out that business card, because it makes you think like, oh, this person knows how to do marketing. So whatever, there was someone there who had a floaty that was around her.
Right. And I didn't.
Yeah,
I don't remember her.
that
But
was awesome.
this is the largest podcasting conference in the world. So like,
Yeah.
I somehow missed that, but I believe you. And just one more thing about your lens cleaner, people are going to be like, gosh, okay, enough of the lens. But let me tell you, it is so resourceful. Like I use it. It's not like something I'm just going to toss to the side. Like talk about efficiency, talk about something that I can actually use in my day to day. So yeah, love the lens cleaner, and set yourself apart from the rest, stand out. Love all of that.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. It's lighter than a business card.
Right.
It's it takes up less space and it's useful. So anyway, all right.
Any business card I still have.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what's something that people won't throw away right away? Because I try to get the info somehow and then I throw it out. But this way it's like, oh, Ed is like laying on my table right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about how you got into content creation. So what led to, you like starting to be a content creator and like wanting to share your life and your story with other people? Like, how did you start getting into that?
Well, I've always been an open book. I've always kind of been the person that overshared, divulged way
Same.
more than I probably should have or anyone asked for. But I've also always considered myself to be a pretty creative person. I think in the midst of the pandemic, I mean, so many hidden talents really came to life for many people.
Yeah.
For me personally, we're in the midst of a pandemic, lots of free time. I can get a little bit into my pre-sobriety story. I like to call that the dark ages or the dark times. But before I got sober, since my podcast is all about sober living, I found that when I wasn't drinking, I still needed like an outlet. And so I started vlogging in the pandemic. And I had a unique situation where most people were quarantining inside, as one should, as per the CDC recommendation. However, I was living abroad. I was living in Mexico and I was still traveling internationally where I could. So I visited a few countries like Guatemala in the pandemic, Colombia, and I wanted to capture that footage. It was a very unique point in time and I didn't know, what tomorrow would bring. So I wanted to document my travels. I've always loved to travel and I felt like it was just a visual way for me to hold look back in time and say, wow, like this was such a cool experience. So I started my very first YouTube channel just under my name, Nadine Mulvina. And I documented all of my little travel vlogs and it was super fun. And I really leaned into that. So that was like the first thing that I think sparked my creative side and me recognizing that I even had this talent to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate to that in the sense of like, I started really doubling down on content creation during the pandemic. And it was like a way, like, especially travel content, because I was one of the people like stuck in my house for a long time. So it was a way for me to like live vicariously through my past self, edit my travel vlogs. And I could be like, oh, that was so fun being out there. And so it was like a little bit of a therapy for me. And also just, I got into streaming then. And I've had a little dip, but I'm trying to get back, 2025 coming back strong.
Yeah.
That was a way that I could actually talk to friends and interact with them and meet new people through live streaming on Twitch. So I definitely connect with that. And I'm sure a lot of people listening are also similar. Like they probably are recent content creators. I started in 2017, but I'm, trying to really take it seriously now. Takes some time. But when talking about like you talked about starting like YouTube. So how did podcasting start for you and how did that get into your mind?
Yeah, so podcasting actually came after getting sober. So there's a very clear line in my mind before times, after times. So I stopped drinking alcohol July 5th, 2021. I still feel like that was semi-pandemic-ish, right? So places were still closed or life hadn't resumed normalcy, whatever that's supposed to mean. So I had about a year of sobriety under my belt. And then so July 2022, when I had my first year of sobriety, a gift to myself was to create the podcast. I had, in that interim of time, started my social media platform, The Sober Butterfly. And that also started as a way for me to document my travel and also hold myself accountable in early sobriety. And through doing so, I just connected with so many people. I loved in the opening segment of today's episode when you mentioned you didn't see anything, so you created it. Like, that's very much true for me. Like, I was connecting with people online. I saw traces of things that I liked, but I didn't really see anything that I felt represented who I was. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start with Sober Butterfly. My friends always called me the social butterfly. I'm always like over here, over there, really at its ADHD.
I love that.
Well, really, it's ADHD. I've come to recognize, but also, yeah, I'm always like fluttering from place to place. And so, yeah, I decided that I'm going to start my own platform. And so I did that. And in that time period, people were just like, I think it's so awesome. People were really connecting with my sober travel stories. And so I wanted to showcase that. And so fast forward a whole year of sobriety, I said, okay, social media is one thing, but I also think social media glamorizes to a certain extent. I think there are shifts, but for the most part, I think like it's the highlights, right? We're romanticizing life. And I wanted to get a little bit deeper, go deeper depth and talk about my story and then invite people into the fold to also discuss their sober stories and their recovery stories and their experiences. So that's really the inception of how the Sober Butterfly podcast got started. And that is like my true baby. Like that is my project, just seeing the different iterations, the seasons, and the consistency, going off of what you mentioned before, like there's this ebb and flow. Sometimes as content creators, we dip in and out and our morale or our motivation can waver, but I still feel very connected to podcasting. And I feel like it's the thing that brings me so much joy because I know it adds so much value to other people's lives.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I do like, even just explaining like social butterfly, sober butterfly, I'm like, oh, duh. I didn't see that at first, but I'm like, oh, that's so clever.
What did you think first? Because I think it represents so many different things.
I didn't take the connection of like social butterfly. Mm-hmm. I thought it was just like you're blooming. You went through a metamorphosis.
Yes, it can take on so many different.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Representations, but yeah.
And it's a really good brand name because when you search it, like you show up, which is not necessarily the case for me. So that's awesome.
There are other adventures out there.
Oh yeah, we won't get into that.
That's also a good say. That's a good like play on words. Adventure.
My friend came up with that. Shout out to Prachi for that. But yeah, so I mean, just going off with that. So I guess there's probably a lot of misconceptions about going sober or what it's like to live a sober lifestyle, and especially travel. Like, I'm sure a lot of people who are not sober or maybe they're newly sober and they're like, how do I stay social? How do I go out without having drinking be a focus of it? Or, how do I go to other places and meet people and experience new things? So I wanted to get your perspective on that specifically, if you could elaborate on that.
Absolutely. I think like so many, to your point, identity is tethered to alcohol. And for someone like, first of all, I want to be clear, like people get sober or go sober or stop drinking for a number of reasons. I myself, I'm very vocal about this. I was a problem drinker. At the time, I didn't recognize it. you can use labels. I think labels stigmatize and can be very frightening, but I would say I was a very functional alcoholic, right? So I was someone that always loved to drink. Love, once again, social butterfly, life of the party. It's cute when you're in your 20s because it feels so normalized. And it's like, oh, you're living in a big city like New York, like you're that girl, that party girl. But then the pandemic hit, going back to that moment, and my drinking exasperated because, now there's not so much life happening. I'm not holding myself accountable in the same ways. So it was a slippery slope, basically, is the point I'm trying to make. And I very quickly found that I was a daily drinker, and that's not something I ever thought would happen to me. But to address your point, getting sober, I think the idea of it was so daunting. It was so overwhelming. Like, oh my God, I have to be sober. Like, that doesn't sound fun. Okay. Sober does not sound fun. We're trying to change that narrative, Ed, but like still there's big misconceptions about what it means to be sober and in relation to fun and travel. And so that's a big part of me starting this podcast in my platform, because it was very much this idea of, well, I don't know if I can handle this idea that I'm never drinking again. Like, that just sounds like death. To be honest, that's what I was thinking back then. So I more so took the approach of treating it like a social experiment. I knew that alcohol was playing a larger role in my life than I wanted it to. And so instead of just saying this is a permanent life change, instead I took it, at face value. Like, let's see how long I can go without drinking and take inventory, like actually collect the data. How do you feel qualitatively? How do you feel quantitatively? And then use that to guide my next steps. So I think for me personally, like bite-sized chunks instead of like incremental change, basically, instead of like this overarching, like you are the sober person now, was a benefit for me. And then I think I had to redefine fun. I had to redefine my travel experiences. It's funny because personally, towards the late stages of my drinking, I was having issues even getting drunk. Like, my tolerance was so high. And it's crazy because I pretty much look the same. So people would look at me and never think like, oh, this girl has a problem with alcohol. It didn't look like all of the archetypes of like brown paper bag and I'm losing my wife and kids. Like, none of that. It was just like me basically as I am. But like internally, I knew something was amiss and I knew something had to change. And so once I made that change, I actually went on within the first month, because I tried to get sober a number of times, but the first month that it really stuck, I went on a 6-week trip to England, Portugal, Morocco, and Spain. So 4 countries in the span of the the first couple of months of my sobriety. And that was an experience in and of itself, because it's a lot of messaging, a lot of good messaging, I would say, around routines and people, places, things. And I think everyone has to find what works for them. But for me, I needed to shake shit up. Can I curse? I'm sorry. I didn't know.
Yeah. That's
I
fine.
needed to shake shit up because I was so like being back in New York. So I moved from the pandemic in 2021 summer back to New York from Mexico, and being thrust back into the same ecosystem where my drinking was prevalent before. I needed to change scenery. And so I went on, like I said, the 6-week journey with my girlfriends, and getting out of my element really actually helped sustain and anchor my sobriety. And that was amazing because it was one of the first times in my travel experiences, always been pretty well traveled, but it was one of the first times where I was actually present, enjoying my trips, making real lasting memories without a hangover, without wasting money because I'm too drunk or too hungover to enjoy the experience, without feeling guilt or shame or anxiety. Like, it was the first time I was seeing the world really through like new eyes. And so that was like a really important data point for me. That trip that I took coming back to New York, like, oh, why would I ever want to go back to life before? Because before I can get into stories if you want, but before, like I said, I've always been a traveler, always been my favorite thing to do. But my travel looked very different, and I put myself in very compromising situations prior to. So I would leave the trip and almost like need a vacation from my vacation. I would just be exhausted from doing reckless things. And so, yeah, I left that trip, that sober trip, my first sober trip, like how refreshing, like how amazing has this experience been?
Yeah, that's awesome. And like kind of taking yourself out of that familiar environment. I definitely think that that could be really powerful as well, because part of your habits are what's around you, and it's easier to fall back into habits if you're you know living situation, like for example for me, if my house is messy, like where I live is messy, then I feel more stressed out, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And it's kind of like the environment around you kind of reflects your mental state sometimes. So like the times when I felt best in my life is when I've like cleaned up, I've been super organized, like I've had like a structure and a schedule. And if you are struggling with that, I think taking yourself completely out of that situation and going to a new place can be like super powerful, like you're saying. So let's talk a little bit about some of your travels. I know you told me you went to a lot of countries, right? I forgot the number.
I should have done a count for you. I think I'm at 51. I
Wow.
think, uh,
I
and
think I'm at 35.
35. That's impressive. And I think like like me being sober for 3.5 years, I think I've gone to like half of those countries within that time
Wow.
frame. Crazy, right?
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So like when you started making content versus now, right? How many years like since you started your YouTube channel was that?
I started my YouTube channel in 2021. I think the first post
Right.
I ever did was I took a trip with a girlfriend to Guatemala. I've been to Guatemala twice, one time before sobriety, one time after, vastly different
Nice.
experiences. The first time, no shade to my girlfriend, I'm still friends with her, but we got into like a drunk fight.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was just, went to the same places, Antigua, went to, what else did we do? Lake Atitlan. And, one of the most beautiful places, literally the most beautiful lakes in the world. And we're like, how when it's awkward when you've been traveling with someone for a long
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of sick of each other, I think, at that
Yeah.
point. But also, like, we had like a petty disagreement the night before, alcohol fueled, of course. And so we're like on this beautiful, serene lake, and we're kind of just like, towards each other. So yeah, that was my first time and my first vlog I ever did under my original YouTube channel. And then I went back 2 years later and had a completely different experience. Same places, just different mindset, perspective.
So the interesting thing to me is like, how has your content creation journey changed? So like when you first started, like, are you using the same, camera setup, etc.? Did you graduate to something else over time?
I graduated. I did. So I'm, as mentioned, I have ADHD. People with ADHD love to tell you that. But I mentioned that because I love to start projects, but I don't always finish them. And so when I started my first YouTube channel, I didn't want to make mistakes like I've made in the past, like buy all the equipment and then like 3 months later, I'm never vlogging again. So I was really proud of myself, but I had set a goal in my mind. I was like 10 YouTube videos equals new equipment. So I filmed everything going through the process. So didn't really know what I was doing when I was vlogging. I was just doing it for funsies, right? Like even me getting sober, social experiment, me vlogging, social experiment. So I developed a process naturally with time, but I really just leaned into the experience. Like I'm traveling. I didn't have like a storyline. I would just wake up that day and say to myself, okay, what's on my itinerary? What am I doing? And then what can I capture without being aggressively annoying to the people around me?
Yeah.
Well, traveling with people who are vlogging can be quite, tiresome for those who are not vlogging. So it was like that part. And then after the 10 video milestone, I upgraded to my Sony ZV-1, which I still use to this day to vlog. So not a huge, like
Right.
I could always ball out and invest more into the content, but that was, I think, a nice stepping stone for me, like having something in mind, a goal to reach towards. Same with podcasting. I started with like a $30 mic and upgraded with time. So that's something that I noticed was a shift in terms of equipment to that question. But my process, funny enough, is pretty similar. Like I am someone that I find if I over plan, it feels a bit forced. And I do think you should have a plan. Like I do think an outline is nice in regards to podcasting, in regards to
Right.
creating vlogs. Like you should have a general outline, but I don't like to feel too scripted or too combined. I think for me personally, it feels stifling. And then I get too in the weeds because I can be a bit obsessive. Like I just get too like, this is not how I planned it out to be.
Yeah.
So instead, I just do a general outline. And then I'm very like, let me just see what content brings like to me. Like literally, like I'm like, okay, like if I'm going here, I'm going to shoot. And then you can always create a story afterwards. That's how I do things. I'm not sure if that's
Yeah.
your process, but like that's similar. I'd be actually curious, like how do you plan your episodes or your vlogs?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just like, first of all, to go to like what you're speaking initially, you can get started with your phone. You don't need anything else. Yeah.
One of my highest rated, oh, sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
My highest viewed videos was on my phone. Like, like I got super creative and then you just can add other software. Like the time I was using iMovie and, I think the magic oftentimes happens in post anyway, in editing. But sorry, continue.
No, yeah. And like, honestly, there's so many free resources nowadays. It's like way easier to be a content creator than it ever has been before. And phones are like it. I remember the first cell phone I had was terrible. It was a flip phone. But today, your first phone when I don't even know how young kids are getting phones, like 13 or maybe 8 or
younger.
Something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because it was, how old was I? 16, I thought. And I was like, whoa, I have a phone.
I was young. I was that girl with the pink Motorola.
I had
humble brag, my Razor.
I had a Katana, which is like the knockoff Razor. That was my first phone.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But anyway, yeah. So it's like, yeah, nowadays it's like, it's way easier to create content. The camera quality is amazing. The mic quality is amazing. When I do IRL streams, it's literally just my phone. And I don't have an external mic for that. And it picks up my voice really clearly. And I'm always surprised when I listen back to the stream. I'm like, whoa, that's like, that's like really good. And yeah, so like I like, I'll talk about this more, but the only thing I pay for the IRL streams is $10 for disconnect protection. Everything else I did completely for free. And it's this, like, there's free editing software, DaVinci Resolve, CapCut. There's all this stuff that's available for you. And like you said, having those goals, I think, like, I'm very goal oriented as well. I like to try to reach milestones. And then you can be like, okay, I can reward myself with this new equipment, because honestly, it's like just about getting the reps in, right? Yeah. It's like anything else, but it's true. And people are impatient, like they are with everything, with exercise, with diet, with whatever. But for content creation and making videos or podcasts or live streams, you just got to do it and keep going, and it's gonna suck, and it's gonna be bad, but you got to accept it.
Your first draft is not going to be a masterpiece, and that's okay. The first thing you put out into the ether is not going to be perfection, and that's okay. It's the process that is actually the fun part, I find. And then you get to look back and cringe, but also laugh and say, look how far I've come. Once you get to this, elevated point. I love everything you shared. I was also going to say, like, sometimes we our own, like, barrier. It sounds like people overthink, and it's like, no, to your point, just act, just do it. And then you can always pivot or, optimize later on. But like, sometimes, I don't know if you've done this, like you research something down to the nitty gritty and you're getting like, and it's just like this, that's actually exhausting. And then you also, you get that dopamine where you think you've done something, but it's like, you haven't even started. Like all you've done is research the best equipment or the best blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, I feel good, I'm making strides, but no, you're not, because you have a phone, to your point. You have a computer. Like, I'm not even using my mic right now. Like, you can hear me fine. I sound fine. I look okay. So it's like, don't prevent yourself from getting started. Just start. just act. There's no excuse. Just do it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, I don't feel ready to start this podcast, but here I am. You know, first episode, I'm just doing it. It might stink. I don't know. I think it's going pretty well. But the point is, it's just like, it's episode 1. I got hundreds more to go, or 1,000. Who knows? But the other thing too is, like, nowadays, especially, people want authenticity. YouTube is crazy right now, because YouTube, not only is it the number one streaming service, so people watch YouTube on their TV more than they watch it on their phone, more than they watch it on their computer.
I know that.
And it beat out Netflix last year, I think.
Really?
So it is now the number one most watched streaming service on televisions, and it's free.
Wow.
Right? And what does that say? It's like, okay, even though like Netflix and Max and Disney Plus have, this gigantic, they still can't compete with the authenticity of just people creating things, And the other thing too, which you probably know, is YouTube is also the number one platform for podcasts.
I did know that part from Podfest. Yeah.
Yep. So it's crazy, right? And it's like, what does this mean? It's the democratization of content, right? And it's, there's all sorts of stuff with algorithms, etc. But you can be someone's favorite show. That's pretty cool. And if you work on it, you can, before you had to like go through all this red tape. You had to do casting, interviews. What was it called? Auditions. There we go. Whatever. All this stuff, you had to be stamp of approval from the company, and that's not the way it is today. Anyone can be a success, and you just have to want it enough. You got to iterate and reiterate and keep going, and that's, I think, the number one for. And listen, I'm not a success. I'm learning too. I'm learning with you, right?
You got to reframe that. You are. I don't like that. You are a success in your own right. Look at you.
Okay, thank you.
You're doing. You're sharing knowledge that is spot on. Like, going back to what you mentioned about the authenticity piece, I 100% agree. I think people love a good come up story, which brings me, I want to add one little caveat to what you mentioned. You have to build, I think personally, a brand. Right. Mm-hmm. And the brand doesn't need to be like the Sober Butterfly or Adventures, but you basically want to show people who you are, what you're about, what you represent, and why you're here, and why they should tune in. Right. Yeah. And I think when people see, like, if you're honest and forthcoming, like, I don't know everything. I think that's what you meant when you're like, I'm not a success. Yeah. But, like, I don't know everything. But like, I'm going to share what I do know. And we're going to like follow along on this journey, because people really do like to see that, like, that evolution, so to speak. Maybe it's the Sober Butterfly, the metamorphosis in me speaking, but I think, to your point, like, it is, so, I think, beautiful and also powerful what we have at our disposal. Like, we can build a community, we can build a brand, and we can disseminate important information to the masses without the red tape, like you mentioned.
Yeah. And like everything I learned with content creation, shooting, editing, podcasts, streaming,
$3.99 on YouTube
University, 100%. I majored in Chinese in college. Okay. Really? It's not. Yeah. I am not like someone who went to film school or whatever. Like, you don't need to be. Right. There's like, literally, you have the equivalent of like Ivy League education on YouTube. And it's like everything. It's like, the library is in your pocket. Basically, it's in your phone. You can get whatever you want, and you can recontribute to that as well with making content and providing value to other people. And hopefully that's what I'm doing. I want people to learn with me, and let's grow together. Yeah. But speaking about your brand, because you have very, very strong branding, what are your plans for your future with your brand? Do you have anything coming up that you want to shout out, or kind of like next steps that you want to get to, like those goals that we're talking about?
Yes. Thank you for this question. So as you guys know, I have the podcast. That is my heart. I love it. As tiring as it can be to be a one-woman show for the most part, and you'll see it's a lot when you're doing it for the most part by yourself. I want to actually, in the spirit of collaboration, like that's my word for 2025, collaboration. Like I need to kind of release the reins and be a little bit more like, okay, like let's share this vision with other people, because I think like there's so much value that others can contribute. And I think I've been a bit, I don't know, like a little too like, this is my baby and I don't want anyone to taint it. But I need to trust and have good intentions about, you know, people who I would allow into that part of the creative process. So I have the podcast, I have my YouTube channel, I have the social media accounts where I like to bring levity and humor into a lot of the content that I share, because sobriety can be so heavy and it's a lot of work. Like I hope it doesn't, you know, diminish the work that goes into it. But I'm also like, come on, like, can we just laugh? Can we, like, that to me is a release, like that cathartic, like, ha ha ha. Like, yeah, I was just crying 10 minutes ago, but now I can laugh. So I like to do that. That's a big part of my brand as well. Just like the fun, redefining fun, as we mentioned. And so to get to your question, I would love to get into sober group trips. Like I said, travel is my other passion, true passion in life. I've always loved to travel. Now I feel super passionate about sobriety. So I feel like merging the two, like marrying those two makes
That's awesome.
sense. And people DM me a lot like, hey, like, do you run trips? And I'm like, I feel like I'm missing an opportunity here. So yeah, I think that's where I'm sort of going. I've dabbled in events here in NYC, which I love to do. I love to bring people together in real life. To your point earlier about networking in real life.
Yeah.
Definitely think like, especially after the pandemic, like people are craving that in-person connection, but like I love to travel. So I'm like, I want to see that come to life under the Sober Butterfly.
And that's so cool. Like, honestly, like when you said that, I was like, wow, that's an awesome idea. Yeah.
Great sober run trips. But I think like for me, like going back to what I said, like I started the Sober Butterfly because I didn't see anything like me out there. Not to say I'm like, oh, you're so unique, you're so special. But like, you know, people feel connected to like who they see themselves in. So I'm like, I see other amazing sober run group trips, but not what I'm thinking. So
Yeah.
I want to
put your spin on it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then going back to the question, because I'm curious. I'm not like a sober person. I'm probably like a social drinker, whatever you call it. But
humble brag. I'm sorry.
No. I'm just putting it out there. Like I'm not part of the sober community. Yeah. So I'm interested in like, you know, when your friends go out or whatever, like how do you like, is it hard to like be around alcohol, or is that too personal a question? I don't know.
Oh my God, I'm an open book. Did you not hear me before I overshare? No. Okay. So now 3.5 years in, coming up to 4 years, July 5th of this year. No, not at all. Like, in fact, maybe I'm still a little toxic inside. Like, I mean, I love being around people who are drunk sometimes because I'm like, ooh, content in my head. Like, people think sober people are judging. We're not judging, like, or at least I'm not. I'm like, this is fascinating because I'm like playing the tape forward. I'm like, if that were me, when that was me, like,
right.
I'd be so much better than all of you. Like, right now, like that is how like messed up my mind is. Anyway, so no, it does not bother me at all. I feel like it's so sweet when people are like, Nadine, is it okay if I have a drink around you, who are not like close with me, who know I'm sober? And I'm like, please, like, yes, do you. Like, I do not care what's in your cup. So no, it does not bother me today. But yes, once upon a time, absolutely it bothered me. I think in the first, like they say, the first year of sobriety can be the hardest, right?
Mm-hmm.
For 90 days, I should say, the first 3 months. That's also a big milestone that people have to sort of get through.
Yeah. And
they talk about this pink cloud effect in sobriety. Have you heard of this? Pink cloud? Pink clouding is like when you, for some people, I think a lot of people, because it's a whole term, when they quit drinking, like after they get over that little hump, everything is like rose-colored glasses, like butterflies and rainbows and ponies. I don't know. I didn't really experience that. Like I said, I went on that trip with my two girlfriends who were not sober, but like you, social drinkers, so not like partiers like me when I was drinking. But when I came back to New York, I was angry. I was struggling. So even when I came back from that trip, I felt better about sobriety, but I still did not experience like the rainbow butterflies, all that jazz. I felt like yeah, angry. And I think it was because of the way I was thinking about it. Like I saw it at the time as a deficit as opposed to, a value, like something that was
Right.
a positive that I was like benefiting from and investing in future self. So once I
So a little bit like a FOMO or a jealousy.
absolutely
Yeah.
FOMO, yeah. And then also people also talk about losing friends in sobriety. I would argue that I didn't lose a single friend. I lost drinking buddies, social acquaintances. But like my real friends, my day ones were there for me. Even the ones that I felt like weren't super supportive, I had to give grace to with time, with time. I gave grace to because I recognized, I'll give an example. I had a girlfriend, one of my best friends, love her to pieces. I know she loves me. I know she wants the best for me. But when I was getting sober, in like the first month of me being sober, she came to visit me in New York and I told her I wasn't drinking. She knew some of my shenanigans. She knew that I really did want to give alcohol a break. And we went out a few times and like multiple occasions, Ed, a big thing for me was wine. Like I was a big wine drinker because it felt more sophisticated. And so we'd be out and she'd be like, oh, smell the tannins on this Melbeck. And I just want to strangle you. And then she'd be like, oops, I forgot. Or are you really not going to drink? Like that.
Right.
Like that used to just cut. And I was so angry, but didn't communicate properly. I didn't have the verbiage at the time or the experience. Now, if anyone did that to me, it wouldn't even be an issue. I'd be like, don't even. But at the time, I was very sensitive and angry. And like I said, it felt like a lost FOMO. And so I was super resentful towards her for some time, actually, without communicating again. But I learned to give people grace because, like I mentioned, when that is your identity for so long, if that's how people know you, right? As the party girl, as the social butterfly, as the one that's going to always have a story in the group chat the next day. Like, if that's who you are, like, I had to learn to re-identify or redefine my personality. Not even personality, like my identity, because it so much, like I said, was tethered to drinking.
Right.
My hobby, if you ask me what I like to do, Ed, it was drink. I probably wouldn't say that depending on who I was speaking to.
Right.
The first thing that came to mind was like, yeah, I like to drink. Like,
yeah.
I didn't have hobbies. So I had to give my friends grace and people who cared about me that I know genuinely cared about me. Like, it was an adjustment period for them as well. So I say all that to say, now, no issue. Back then, it was problematic. And if anyone is questioning their relationship with alcohol, and this is a good question people can ask themselves, because like I said, labels can be scary. I would just ask yourself, what role, this is what my therapist asked me countless times, which helped me get sober, but what role is alcohol playing in your life? And are you comfortable with that? Like, is that role too big? And you have to be honest with yourself, right? Like I said, I was not honest from the beginning. It took countless of times, sessions of her asking me the same question until I realized like, oh, like it's taking up a bigger space and role in my life that I would like to admit. And so that's what helped me scale back and then ultimately quit. So no, it's not an issue for me. I don't want to get on my soapbox and, demonize alcohol, but I don't see any value. I don't think there is a value. And so many people, I know it doesn't have health benefits. I think with the recent Surgeon General warning coming out, so many sober people were so hype about this when he was like, yeah, we need to put labels on alcohol, like tobacco. Like this is a, carcinogen. This is cancer causing. This is toxic.
Right.
Yeah, we know that. Sober people. But I think the point I'm trying to make here is alcohol, like, you can only, it's a spectrum, right? Alcohol use disorder is a spectrum.
Yeah.
That's why people Google, am I an alcoholic? And it won't tell you. Like, only you can do the inner assessment to determine the role alcohol is playing. And yeah, I would say now when I go out, it's entertainment a little bit. I hate to say it, not judging, once again, not judging people, but I never feel tempted, don't get cravings anymore. And yeah, I think it's just because I don't see any value and I've seen how much my life is optimized since. So it's super obvious to me. Yeah.
Right. So going back to I know we're going a little bit out of like travel video, but it's super interesting. Um, and we all have people that are trying to get sober in our lives. You might not know it, but so how would you recommend someone who is not sober, like treat someone who is newly sober, or someone who is, like they're all going out and maybe for the group, drinking might be a focus. Like, how could that person make the sober person more comfortable?
Thank you for that question. More people need to ask questions like this. I would say, Ed, don't disqualify that person. That was another thing that bothered me going back to early sobriety. Once people accepted the fact that I was serious about not drinking, because I think so many people were like, whatever, Nadine. Oh.
Yeah.
But once they realized, like, oh no, she really wants to not drink, I think as a way to they thought good intentions here. I think they believed that they were protecting me from drinking adjacent activities or activities by not inviting me.
Right.
They don't do that. That hurts our feelings.
That's more FOMO.
Yeah, that's more FOMO. And it's also like, that
makes it harder maybe because you're like, oh, maybe I should just drink again so I can hang out with them.
Exactly. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm on an island by myself. Like, it's already kind of isolating if you don't know anyone personally in your life sober. That was my case. Didn't know a sober person. So I would say, like, don't do that. Don't treat your sober friends like they're a leper, that they don't get invited to the events and you take them out the group chat and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I would say be supportive. Be supportive. If, for example, and I think this is the beauty of being in 2025, like in the 3.5 years I've been sober, I'm seeing more and more sober, like the sober curious movement has really taken momentum and storm. And I feel like there's so many more places, even if you go to a bar, where they have mocktails available, where they have non-alcoholic drinks. That's not just like a Shirley Temple, because we're not 5 years old, like more of a comprehensive list.
Right.
So if you want to be if you want to be an ally, if you really want to support your sober friends or newly sober friends, make sure you include them. If you want to go a notch above, do a little bit of research. It will take you 5 seconds. If you're organizing an event, see if they have places or options available for this person. If you're hosting at your house, have some non-alcoholic beer if they're drinking non-alcoholic beer, because not everyone does, but have options, right? Like, don't make them feel like they are totally alone and it's a burden. You know what I mean? Like, just find ways.
So still go out, still invite them.
Yes.
Do what you were going to do, but just be a little bit more aware. And they basically have their agency. They can decide if they don't want to go because of whatever, right?
Yeah, because they know you. They're like, I know my friends. I already know they want to watch the game on a Sunday, whatever. Like, I'm not going there. Everyone's gonna be shit-faced, like that kind of thing. Like that person have the agency, the autonomy to decide for themselves. And I would say another thing is, like, see if you can include them in activities, right? If you realize that all you do is really hang out when you're drinking, because I realize that too, like a lot of my social interactions involved alcohol, maybe start thinking about, oh, can we do something that maybe they want to do that doesn't involve alcohol? Like going to the movies, even though I would go to the movies drunk, but stuff like that. But like, I'm just giving ideas here. So I would say all of the above. And I think something I would love to echo here as well, or just share here, is the idea that I think what happened for me, going back to redefining fun, I mean, like, I live in New York City. I've been here for like 11 years. And prior to me getting sober, I can count on like one hand how many times I went to museums for funsies for myself, or how many times I went to Broadway. So
there's like so much available to you in New York.
You're right. Yeah. And but you asked me how many times I went to a bar or the club,
right?
Limitless.
Countless. Yeah.
Countless. So I just want to say, like, I think as a sober person, they eventually, if they decide to stay on that track, like, they themselves will lean into new hobbies and new experiences, to where they may be inviting you to do stuff, like, it might be about that. But like, I think in the beginning, to your earlier question, like, lean in, be supportive, don't exclude them, and try and have options available.
Yeah. Awesome. So when we're talking about like networking and stuff like that, because we talked about that before, and you're talking about creating these opportunities in possibly for like sober group trips, all that sort of stuff. How important is networking to you when it comes to content creation? And like, what have you found are the best ways to do so? Because I know a lot of people struggle with this, especially like, let's say there isn't a conference near them or a group near them. Like, you know, we're around New York City, so the world is at our fingertips, but some people might be, I don't know, in the middle of nowhere and they can't afford to take a flight or what have you. So it's like, how would you encourage people to network if they're not in like a huge metropolitan city? And like, what are the most effective ways for you personally for networking?
I love this question too. I think globalization has its advantages and disadvantages. I think one of the biggest advantages truly is the advent of social media. And I think when you take pride in your work and you create content that speaks to you, right? And I talked before about, you know, building a brand or creating community. I think all of that is important, but the operative word that you used was authenticity. But when you create something that is authentic for you and connects with other people, then truly, like, I think the majority of the deals I've gotten, like the people that have reached out to me, is not, I think I know, is because of social media. Like, and I don't have like, you know, tens of thousands of followers. It's simply the fact that they can see, I didn't buy my followers, right? Like, these are real people. Don't buy your followers, guys.
Yeah.
They're real humans. And you can see that through the engagement. You can see that because I've created that community and that space. And like, I'm excited about the work that I do. And even though like all of my work is not always like the highest quality, for the most part, I take pride in my work. So I create and put out into the ether, into the universe, things that I know speak to me, that will speak to other and resonates with others, and people slide into your DMs. Make sure that you have, guys, if this is not super obvious to you, no matter what platform you decide to go with, I started with social media, with Instagram specifically, make sure that you have somewhere super obvious, a way for people to connect with you. Messages get lost in DMs.
Yep.
You're like, I have missed opportunities because it doesn't even filter into my direct DM somewhere else. So make sure that you have your email address or your website or a way for people to contact you. And that way you can follow up. And then I would also say, don't just wait for these opportunities to fall onto your lap. Like, that is one approach. I think when you start to build, you know, a following and rapport, people will refer you and like people will connect with you and find you. But you also need to hustle a little bit and you need to get out there. And I would say it depends once again on the medium that you're looking for, but I would start with like, what if you're trying to, for example, get a brand deal or get a sponsorship for your podcast, like start with products that authentically speak to you. What do you use? What do you love? What do you naturally rave about to people like they're in your circle? And then reach out to them. And it
might make sense for your audience.
Yes, that makes sense for your audience. Exactly. Thank you for that. That makes sense for your audience. And then pitch them. Reach out to them. And it may start with like, hey, well, we don't have the budget, or wait, like maybe next quarter, blah, 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 blah. Right. But I don't see that as a no. I see that as a, okay, not right now, follow up. And they want to know that you're going to follow up because you're serious.
Yeah.
They might just send you samples, but like you can create content. Like I would say if you want to be a content creator, you need to stop pretending and you need to start acting as though you are a creator and take your business seriously. I think that is like the biggest takeaway, because if you're waiting until you hit X number of followers or X number of downloads,
nothing's going to fall into your lap.
Exactly. Like you have to hustle from now. You have to be hungry and you have to go after what you want and create authentic content. Like that is the biggest way. And you don't need to live in a big city to do that. I think it is advantageous for us because we are closer, but most people are reaching out. They're not knocking on my front door like, hey, you're here, so I want to come to your house. Like most of these things are happening because they see me.
That'd be concerning.
Yeah, right. And I would say though, like if you can, once or twice a year, invest in yourself and go to a networking event like PodFest, something that makes sense to you, then that's once a year. You make lifelong connections. If you approach it correctly, if you actually network properly, you can make lifetime connections with people from simply going to an event once a year or twice a year. So like I would say many things. I've said a lot there, but you have to invest in yourself. You have to authentically create content, and you have to be hungry and not just wait for people to come to you, but like actually pitch and go after what you want.
For sure. And we'll let the audience know if there's anyone watching live who has any questions. Please send them in the chat, and we'll get to those as they come in. But the other thing I also wanted to say was when you go to these conferences, it's like-minded people. It's other people that understand the struggle of doing the content creation. You know, it's like we talked about it, and now we're doing podcasts with each other. You know, it's like these are your people, right? They're people that understand it, because, you know, we have a lot of friends. Not all of most of our friends probably aren't like content creators, or, you know, or it might feel kind of cringy. Like sometimes I feel like that when I'm talking to my friends that don't create content, because it's like, oh. But when you go to these conferences and stuff, that, you know, people get you. And another thing, there's a ton of free workshops out there. You can just search them. A lot of your favorite YouTubers or content creators, they do workshops. As a way, also, you can learn from them, because it's a way that they can put you into their sales funnel, provide some content, some value for you in exchange for like your email, which I need to take my own advice. I just started doing like some email marketing stuff. I need to get more into that. But, you know, all of these opportunities abound for you. And then when you're in these workshops, you can talk to people. And once you have the person, you know, I know they're not literally across from you, but they're seeing your face and hearing your voice. It makes a big difference when that person sees the person in you, and you're asking for mentorship or help, and or offering your, you know, editing services, what have you. It is like a huge difference than cold DMing, or it's like, think about back in the day when you get the, you know, the cold calls, and you're like, it's annoying. But if you're there for that person and they set aside the time to talk to you, which is what happens in a workshop, then that is also valuable. And also you can talk to the other people there, get their information, and network that way. So yeah, there's a ton of ways you can network beyond.
Can I add one thing there?
Absolutely.
Exactly what you're saying, but in case people don't, just make it super obvious. Go to those freebies, those webinars, and everything there. But I would also say, I think the key word that I loved from this conversation was authenticity. If you're following these people, their channel, their social media, whatever, you need to actually connect, right? Like, subscribe, comment. Like, people do even if they have a huge following, like, there's a paper trail. Like, people do know. And like, if you actually
That's a great point.
are not just like sliding in their DM or just sliding into their workshop, like, they know. So like, I know, trust me, I know. So like, just make sure that you are actively like resharing, reposting, engaging in some kind of way. You don't have to be stalker level, but like, definitely show that you are showing love, because a lot of these things are free, but it wasn't free to make. Even if it costs them no money to make as a content creator, the time, the energy, the years of expertise that they then disseminated into this one page or into this workshop, that costs something. So like, show appreciation and actually their content. So I just wanted to add that one thing.
No, absolutely.
Clinical, like, they're just going to hit up every single person.
No. And don't do that. And don't be the person that like interrupts the word. No, but if there's a question that comes up or what have you, and then you can follow up with an email or something. But you know, obviously have some, you know, social awareness, hopefully.
People who have asked me to like, whatever, like, come on their podcast or whatever, like, I love you so much, you're the best, like, I've been following, and then I'll look, because Instagram shows you like, this person has been following you since, and it's like today. Or like, they haven't followed me at all. And it's just kind of like, have you been loving my content for all this time and you just started following me today? I highly doubt that. And I'm not like even trying to be petty. I'm just using that as an example. Like, people can tell if you've been actively engaged with their content. And so,
another thing, Facebook groups, Discord servers, those kinds of things, you know, community. Shameless plug for my Discord server.
I love plugs.
Yeah, I know. I will actually, where is it? I'm gonna drop it in the chat here. But anything else that you wanted to discuss or let anyone know? Any other tips and tricks that you found along the way? Also, I actually had one more question.
Oh, yeah.
Have you started outsourcing anything like editing or using virtual assistants or anything like that? I'm very curious because I personally haven't, but I know that in order to grow at a certain point, that's a smart move if you can afford it.
That's what I was touching at before, collaboration. I know this year that is what I'm going to do. Currently, I do everything myself. I feel like I've actually missed some money on the table or lost some opportunities because I'm just one person and I haven't been able to necessarily take advantage of some things because I'm one person. I have had people help me on smaller projects like my website and things like that. Like I've hired people on Upwork, but for the most part, I do everything myself. So like that's what I was saying. My word for 2025 is collaboration, and I'm going to walk away from this conversation as a nice reminder for myself that I need to follow up on that and be more thorough with collaborating.
But yeah, anything else about, like, I know you do a lot of solo travel, and the other thing we talked about was backlog of content that I suffer from too. Do you have like some sort of plan for attacking that? Because I know like I have like a schedule where I'm trying to like, okay, I want to try to get one video out every 2 weeks at the minimum. So any thoughts on that?
That's a great goal. No, I don't have a plan except for I've kept all my Sims nicely protected. So I have content from Japan 2023 that I still need to post.
Yeah.
So
from 2017.
I think the plan, and we talked about this before, like I think for me at this point, like I got to release control, right?
Mm-hmm.
And understand that having a product that people can view, even if it's not exactly what I envisioned in my mind, is better than having no product at all. So I plan on using a lot of my content that I've shot and basically sharing that on hiring someone on Upwork or Fiverr to actually create the content for me. It's not cheating. I am telling myself that.
Yeah.
It's still my content that I share.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing too for me. I'm like,
it's not cheating. It's just being smart.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm never going to get it done in a timely fashion.
Right.
Don't hire help because I have my hands full, as I'm sure you do with life.
It's like
all these other things we have.
Steve Jobs, when he created the iPhone, he wasn't going in the factory and making it. It's like in order to, grow, you gotta
years and
delegate.
Lots, I'm sure, like all the things. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate anything else you want to plug. Plug your socials before we end for the day. But I really appreciate you coming on, being our very first guest.
Yay.
It's awesome.
This was fun. Thank you for having me. This was
of course
my very first live stream. I can be found, my name's Nadine. I can be found at the Period Sober Butterfly on pretty much all social platforms. I'm mostly an Instagram girl. I have my YouTube channel. I'm dipping my pinky toe in TikTok that sounds old, on TikTok. And I love creating content. Please follow my podcast or listen to my podcast, The Sober Butterfly. I talk all things sobriety, whether that's related to living your best life, alcohol-free, in travel, in dating, relationships, everything Ed mentioned in the intro. So guys, check it out. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And very first episode, very first guest. Thanks, Nadine, for that. And yeah, like I said, you can follow me on YouTube, youtube.com/adventuresvlog, twitch.tv/adventureslive. And I will put the information for the Discord down below. And you can follow me at Adventures Official on Instagram. But thank you so much, and I appreciate you for listening to the very first episode of IRL Ventures Travel Video Creators Podcast, and keep creating. Thanks a lot.
Bye.